So, Red Peyton, hello and welcome to the Maestro Online.
Thanks so much. Thanks for talking with me today.
It's fabulous having you. So, I've been listening to lots of your stuff over the years, and you've got a very earthy blues origin that has led to an enormous following. And of course, not just your guitar style, but your wife on the washboard and the drums, and your vocals and your songwriting and your inspiration. There's so much there. So, where did that all begin?
Well, when I was a kid, I got obsessed with blues early on, and I was really kind of obsessed with sort of chasing it backward. Like I would hear somebody and be like, looking at liner notes and see, for instance, maybe it was Led Zeppelin or something. You look there and you see like, okay, well, who wrote that song or who inspired that? Like what was this their influence, right? And you go back to Muddy Waters, and it's like, well, okay, well, who did Muddy Waters listen to? What was he into? Who you get back to Howlin Wolf, who did he listen to? What was he into? And you get back to guys like Charlie Patton and Bukka White, and some of the early heroes of country blues, and that was just that
So,
just fired me up. It just
yeah. So,
that
so
was
tell me a bit about Charlie Patton because he's had a very big influence on you.
oh yeah. I mean, arguably the most important figure in American music history, right? I mean, and I say that, and people will go, "Oh, how's that possible? I've never heard of him." I'm like, "Well, just because you're ignorant of something doesn't mean it's not true." And I can tell you this much: that if there hadn't been Charlie Patton, then it's very possible that Muddy Waters and Howlin Wolf never would have picked up a damn guitar. And if they had never played, think about what the whole landscape would look like. Even Hank Williams Sr. learned to play guitar from a disciple of Charlie Patton. I mean, it's just his
So,
influence.
what is it for you that led you to be really, really hooked on Charlie?
Well, it's almost hard to describe. I'm here. I am. I'm a little kid. I'm 12 years old, and I'm learning how to play the guitar, and I'm just obsessed with stuff. And you know, you're trying to absorb everything, right? And anything you
Yeah,
hear, you're like, okay, how's that played? How's that played? How's that played? How's it played?
yeah.
Well, I got a hold of a compilation disc with some Charlie Patton on it. And when he popped on, like, I don't know, there was just something, it just spoke to me, like a primal level, deep, deep down. And
And is that
I,
musically, or is that lyrics, or is it
um,
inspiration behind, or
musically, musically, more than lyrically, uh, Charlie Patton's lyrics are, uh, you know, lyrically, there's probably better lyricists in blues history. But in terms of feel and music, there it isn't much better. Um, it and that's an interesting thing too, as far as music goes. I always say this. I'm like, a song doesn't have to have lyrics to be a song.
yeah,
It has to have music. Music's the most
yeah,
important thing. I think a lot of people can't hear music when they listen to a song. They only hear the words because I think that they're in some manner of tone deaf or something. It happens a lot. I have a few people I bounce songs off of, and not like industry people, but just regular folks. And one of them in particular, I won't say who because I don't want to call them out. I'm pretty sure they're tone deaf, and I like for them to hear the song so that I kind of know what someone who is basically tone deaf is going to think about the song
yeah.
too.
So this is
Um,
your market research, so to speak.
Yeah, it's kind of like my own little focus group I've got. But
Yeah,
anyway, back to Charlie. So Charlie, I heard Charlie's music, and it was musically, and I think a lot of it is, man, it's that ancient primal scale that he's playing. There's you go down to your local guitar shop and say, I want to learn how to play blues, and they'll teach you the minor pentatonic scale, but that's not really what's being played, especially not the early stuff. Um, they are either playing slide to get to or bending up to get to notes
yeah,
that are
yeah,
not
yeah,
in the normal chromatic scale. They're playing a West
yeah.
African scale. And
And
I
that gospel bend from underneath the note, and often the thirds aren't quite true, are they? Often it's somewhere between a minor and major third.
It is, and it's not. Those thirds are flatted, the sevenths are flatted, but they're not flatted just to infinity or to a. They're flatted to a real place. If you go to and experience West African music, there are certain instruments that maybe like marimbas or bells or similar kinds of instruments where you just hit the note. You don't have to bend it. It just is the note, and those thirds are often flatted in that exact way.
Yeah.
That's no, that's the scale. It's not. And I've started talking about this more because I think it's very important to know. I love music history. I love how all this stuff came to be, and in my opinion, it's fascinating, right? And it's fascinating how different cultures will flat the third. It's not a completely unique thing to West Africa, but the way it is
No,
flatted.
here's what I think. I think it's more closely tuned to the higher notes of the harmonic series, the natural harmonic series, than the piano, which is a compromise of
Yeah,
that.
well, there, it's I've discussed that with people before, and I always say I'm like, that's possible that it's a little bit toward that, but really it's flatted completely. It's to a place so in between to not really even be close enough to even be considered for that. It's a real place. It's kind of like, imagine if you take the guitar and you in the European chromatic sort of way, it's 12 notes in between
Yeah,
the octave, right?
yeah,
Well, some cultures have as many as 23, 25. They flat it
yeah.
or they cut it up different ways. But for the most part, what they're doing is not actually like the actual true chromatic notes are in that as well, but there's extra little notes, and in sort of the
Microtones.
high culture modern way of doing this, we say microtones, right?
Yeah,
They're microtones, but uh I think that's it's one way to say it. I guess it's language, but they're actual real notes. They're real places, and there's a whole lot of emotion that is found there. And if you were to go and play like a Charlie Patton song and play it completely straight chromatic, all of the feeling and emotion's gone. It's suddenly something different. One of my favorites is a song called Mississippi Boll Weevil. It's a one chord boogie song, right? An incredible
right.
piece. The slide guitar is just amazing in that song. And there's only two chromatic notes in the entire song. Everything else is in between the frets. Everything else is microtonal. And there's a whole lot of notes in that song.
Yeah, yeah, it's brilliant. It's brilliant. So tell me now, obviously that's one of your musical inspirations, and once you got yourself hooked onto finger picking, that became a real passion of yours, and your own desire to always be better than you previously were means you're always pushing that boundary a little bit further, always progressing, and that's part of you, I think, that that want to reach that higher level. So every time you reach a level, you think, yeah, that's better than what I've done before. It is better than what you've done before, but actually you've got something better to come next.
Well, I'm obsessed with being better than I was, and every now and then you'll hear someone say, "Oh man, a band's first two records are always their best, and after that they fall off, whatever." And that may be true for some people, because I think a lot of times when you have maybe a person only has a passion for about that much, and then the band themselves maybe they start to fall out with each other, and it
Yeah, yeah,
becomes less of a cohesive thing. But as far as I'm concerned, as far as me, I have spent every day of my entire life since I started playing the guitar trying to be better at the guitar. And I am a better guitar player now than I was 6 months ago. Uh, I would say, and this may sound crazy, and people may think I'm lying or exaggerating. I am twice, if not three times, the guitar player I was 2 years ago. I'm that much better than I was 2 years ago. And I'm over the years, I've gotten better at writing songs, better at singing them, better at performing them, better at recording them, better at presenting them. I have worked tirelessly. And I said this the other day on an interview, and I mean it. If one day I wake up and I decide that I don't have the passion to be better anymore, if I think my best record's behind me, or if I think my best days are behind me, I think I'll retire from this and do
yeah, yeah,
something else that's easier.
yeah.
If you see me get up on stage if you hear me release a record, it's only because I think that I'm better tonight than I was last night's show. Or if the record is better, this record's better than the last record. And
So let's
field of it
put a
all
spin
in
on
our
that then.
career. What's
Let's
that?
put a spin on. Let's put a spin on that. So if you are constantly trying to better yourself, I'm a musician myself, so I'm the same. I'm practicing every day, always trying to come up with new methods, new ideas. Do you have a particular way that you practice that works really effectively for you?
Well, so here's what I do, and it's what I've always done. I try to learn something new every day, right? Something new. Now that may be, uh, it may be something as complicated as some kind of theory, or it may just simply be I'm going to learn a new song, someone else's song, and then I'm going to spend some time with it, and I'm going to kind of study it, and I'm going to see how any of that could maybe be used with myself and the way I write songs and the way I am. And it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to 100% commit it to memory. Like I very rarely will, like, let's say, like learn somebody else's guitar solo and then commit it to memory. What I do is I learn it, I play it through a few times. I know that I can play it, and then I may never touch that again. It's more about, okay, can I do it? Do I understand why it's happened and why they did it? Do I understand, any of the theory behind why it sounds good or the feel of why it sounds good? And I very rarely will work out a piece, especially at this point in my life where I'm going, okay, I have to memorize this and make this the thing.
Yeah,
It's not really
yeah,
what I do. It's more about, okay, I will learn it, I'll play it, I can do it, okay, on the next thing. And then there's other things I'll work on too. The feel. The older I get, the more I think feel is more important than anything else
yeah,
in music. I didn't
yeah.
understand that when I was a kid. Uh, I would listen to something, go over the years we've had different drummers, and I'd be like, well, that just doesn't sound good. Why doesn't that sound good? He's playing it right, but it doesn't sound good. And now I understand in terms of feel why that is the way that it is, and it's something now that I'm really obsessed with, and especially with the band when we get together and rehearse, it's more to me about feel, trying to keep those that feel real sticky, those pockets real deep, and
Yeah.
it's easy to do slow. It's very hard to do fast, but it's just how I feel music. I swing everything. Everything's behind the beat, and I'm probably someone that it frustrates a lot of drummers, honestly, because I like it to be just so behind the beat, so far back. So those are things I'll play with too. I try to, for me personally, I'll try to take my thumb and unmarry it from my fingers even more. So I try to make my thumb, like a good rhythm section, lazier than my fingers. So I try to, when I'm working finger style, I want my thumb to be lazier than my fingers. I want my thumb to be as lazy as possible. So in order to do that, you have to really work to unmarry your fingers from your thumb, and when you're
Get that
playing finger style
independence.
guitar.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So in order to get that level of detail you're talking about, do you practice everything slowly and build the speed up? Is that important to you, or is putting things in different keys, does that matter as well? Those kind of things, or are they not your boat?
Yeah, it can be. I before I had ever learned Nashville numbers, I've always thought of music in terms of Nashville numbers. Before someone told me the caged style of learning guitar, now everyone
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
teaches caged.
yeah.
I just naturally figured that out on my own and did it. I think as far as guitar players are concerned, um, if you're learning and you're young and you're starting out, I think learning Nashville numbers, learning the cage system is probably pretty wise, because that's the way I think about it almost entirely when I'm playing. Um,
Yeah.
but I very rarely am playing and thinking in terms of, like, A B A B G A B. I'm not really thinking it like that. It's more it's more numbers and patterns rather than the actual letter. Because to me, I play in so many different tunings that a song doesn't have a key. A song is whatever key you want to sing it in. And that's another one of the main reasons I think I'm a better singer is just because I learned that. No one taught me that when I was young.
Yeah.
I'm a guitar player. I wrote a song on the guitar in this key, so by God, that's we're going to sing it. And that's not really the way it should be. You
No.
know, it's all about the vocals. So
Yeah,
now
yeah,
before we
yeah.
go in the studio, I might try the song in several different keys to try to figure out exactly
Figure out
where I like singing it. And
where you
that alone
sound best.
that alone makes you a better singer. I mean,
Oh, yeah,
if people do
totally.
that one trick. So to me, a song almost doesn't have a key. It is it has a pattern. It has it has maybe a scale it's in. It has a pattern, but the key itself, is fluid. I think that that you if you really want to get down to brass tacks as a guitar player, I think you should be ready to switch it to any key at any moment, because
Yeah,
in Nashville, why they come up with national numbers is the singer would bring in a song, go, okay, I want to do this, but it was done in E, but now I want to do it in D because I think it'd be better for my voice. Okay, boom, the
yeah,
band's
yeah,
got to be able to do it, and
yeah, 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 yeah.
I'm ready to
That's
change
superb.
that up.
Yeah. So now tell me about inspiration. So a lot of your songs have a very strong spiritual meaning behind them. Although there are plenty that have a more just honest rural meaning behind them, or just honest, like post-COVID, and people have suffered financially and all the rest of it. Is that spiritual side extremely important to your songwriting? Is it something that you really engage with and bring through in your performances?
Man, I think it all is. Like, I try not to, like, well, I very rarely say, "Oh, I'm going to sit down. I'm going to write a song about this." It's not really what happens. I don't. I try to be open to wherever these songs come from. I try to be open to it. So if the song is about food, or if the song is about something more heavy, more spiritual, or more painful, then I try to just be open to that. And that's another thing too. I've tried to be better at is less concerned with, okay, well, this song's a little bit strange. It's not quite, this is a little bit more this or a little bit more that, and I don't know if it's quite right for me or whatever. I try to be more open to it. It's like, no, 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 no. Let's do it. Let's see what we can do. Let's push the boundaries with this. And uh here's an example. On the last full length Dance Songs for Hard Times, there was a song on there called Too Cool to Dance. And that song, I played it for Breezy. When I first played it for her, I was just strumming chords, on open chords on an acoustic guitar, and kind of like the Everly Brothers.
Yeah, yeah.
And she's like, that song's so good. It might be the best song you ever wrote. And I'm like, this song here, this Everly Brothers sound song is the best song I ever wrote. I was almost offended. But I was like, well, okay, well, how do I figure out how to play this with the big damn band? How do I do this? So I spent a long time where and now it's something that I do a lot anymore in terms of like writing and playing, is I taught myself to be able to play a rhythm with my thumbs while playing essentially Chuck Berry licks. And so that song comes out sounding, very sort of like drive-in movie in 1955 or something, which is different for us, right? But
Yeah,
I
yeah.
felt like you know what, it is a cool song. The fingerstyle guitar is cool, and if that's like all those things being equal, um, that's not something that Charlie Patton would have done exactly that way, but maybe he would
No.
have if he had been alive now. Who knows? So it's I let myself sort of be open to whatever. I'm not one of these people. There's certain, you'll find people that are like, oh, I only write political songs, or I only write love songs, or I only write
Yeah.
songs about this, and I that's not really the way I do it. I guess I don't. I feel like I have to be open to everything. I
Yeah.
can't.
Well, I was listening to your Jesus is a Dying Bedmaker.
Yeah.
Well, that wasn't yours, was it? That was Patton, I think, wasn't it?
That's Patton,
Uh,
yep, that's Patton.
and
Well,
then
all
and
that
then your
gospel
version
stuff.
of this little light of mine, and all that gospel stuff. Now, your spin on that is completely different to anything anybody has ever done on that song. Huh?
Well, I think, I mean, the gospel stuff really is inspired and heavily influenced my music, whether it's a heavy song or not, it just is musically. I think that it's one of my biggest influences, but it was to Charlie too. Charlie had a
Yeah,
ton of gospel songs that he recorded under an assumed name. So it's in terms of blues and rock and roll and even country, bluegrass, definitely. The influence of gospel music is almost immeasurable. I mean, it's everywhere. You know, I mean,
Yeah,
there's some people that would say the early rock and roll was just gospel music with the lyrics changed. Um, there's some truth to that in some instances, but it's more like that church vibe, that way that people feel Sunday at a church, a music church. Uh, that was as much borrowed, I think, as was the music. Is that feeling you get where you sort of lose yourself into the moment and the music, and
yeah.
I think that was as borrowed from Sunday morning for Saturday night as even
That gospel trend through your work really comes through strongly, and it comes through as a passion, but not just a passion. It comes through as an excitement almost.
yeah. Well, I think that the way I do my show, the way I do things is definitely gospel influence, not just musically, but even just like that feeling you get on Sunday morning at a music church where people are losing their mind. That's what I think the Saturday night
Yeah,
concert too,
yeah. I'm feeling that. I'm feeling that. Yeah, absolutely. So tell me about your touring work at the minute then. So you're all over the place, and in
Yeah.
fact you always have been, because at one point you were doing something like 250 concerts a year.
Yeah, yeah. We don't do as many as we have once done in the past, but we are still touring an awful lot, as much as anybody. And it's just it's what has to be done. This day and age, it's you don't want to be a complainer, but records don't make money anymore.
No.
They just don't. And you make music and it goes up on Spotify or Apple Music, and it just doesn't make you money. The money that comes back hardly covers the cost of actually making the record. And
And
it usually
I think record labels are always looking for the next name as well. They'll release something, they'll get something out of it, and then they'll be looking for the next name to release. So
well,
there's
and
no
that's the
sense of
oh,
permanence.
well, and that's the other issue is that basically record labels now they're only signing people that are already selling stuff via social media. They're not breaking anything. It's just, do you have a social media following? Cool. Well, sometimes having a social media following doesn't translate to even ticket sales or music sales, because just because someone is interesting online doesn't mean that they are engaging live. It doesn't mean that they have an entire album of good songs. That's a very different thing. The modern social media situation with TikTok and Reels has killed music videos, which
Yep.
is sad to me because I love music videos. I think they're awesome. I think it's an
But
art form.
I think your strength though is your authenticity. So your style is authentic through the linear heritage you've described. When your guitars, like I love the cigar box guitars. I've seen the rifle guitar,
Yeah.
and so on, and the range of guitars, and that you're often using something that's not modern, that's not new, that's historic. And then when you're recording in historic ways that's true to the style that you're recording in.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
and then with the gospel influence as well, which is a heritage and a tradition that goes back a long way, and the blues and the finger picking and the slide guitar, which we haven't mentioned, all combined, I think you have a certain authenticity, a certain integrity that comes through in everything that you do. And when you've got that earthiness, when you're live, it's real.
Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate, I really appreciate that. And I'll say, I think it's become tough to sort of navigate this modern situation. It's some of these people, I don't want to put anybody down, but there's a lot of people on social media that are good at it, but they come across to me like a try hard. And
Mm,
to me, good art is about hard work, but it should, once the art comes, it should flow. You nurture your skills so the art flows naturally, and you don't have to try hard to bring art out. And I I've been having trouble lately trying to figure out where I fit in with TikToks and Reels and things. I really have. But the one thing I know that you cannot download, you can't stream, that's the live show.
Yeah.
And I I I wholeheartedly believe with all my heart that we're as good a live band as anybody out there. And so to me, I kind of hold on to that really hard. I go, you know what? That we've got that. You know, that doesn't translate to a reel. That's hard to put on TikTok. That's hard to even
Yeah.
put
Yeah.
on. And we've always been a good live band, even before we were good at making records. We've always been a
Yes.
good live band, even before, I think we had really settled into, figuring out exactly who we were. We were a good live band back then, and that's carried us. So it's something I will continue to work really hard and do. And also I love it. COVID taught me that the hard way. It was I missed being on stage, and it wasn't just
Yeah.
financial. It wasn't just the financial ruin of the situation. It wasn't just the, uh, like a career situation. It wasn't just about that. It was literally I missed being up there playing songs for people live and in person, and no live stream event captures that in any way. There's something special when a crowd of people come together. It's communal, man, and we as human beings, we we need that. That's part of it's part of our DNA. It's evolutionary. We need to come together and experience things communally. And studies have shown that we chase the dopamine hit online. We chase friendship, we chase communication, we chase all kinds of these dopamine hits online, but it's not the same as real interpersonal and communal connections. It's just
Yeah.
not. And that's the one thing I still feel great about is like, well, the AI is going to come in and do this, that, and the other, and things change, whatever. But you know what? We still are good at doing this live. And as long as I still have my health, by God, we're going to be.
Red Peyton, that is a brilliant point on which to end this interview. And I can't wait to see you live soon. Take care,
Excellent.
man, and good luck.
Appreciate you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much for talking with me.
Thank you so much. Thank you.